Well, welcome everyone to our last week of the art and science of listening. I invite Kim to share with us tonight as we get started.
Thank you, Matt. So tonight we're going to be wrapping up with the impact of listening. And so I'm going to give you my kind of takeaway on the impact of listening. And then we'll have for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have our group breakout sessions for about 15 minutes. And then we'll come back together and during the breakout sessions, we have about 3 things to consider. And then when we come back to the big group, we're going to have about 3 questions that we're all going to share as a big group as well. I'm going to try to screen share, but I'm really not great at this. So please forgive me and be patient if it doesn't work out. But I'm going to just start off with speaking, and then I'll try to screen share the group breakout questions. Okay. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Sometimes we talk and talk, trying to get our point across, becoming increasingly frustrated when we don't feel heard or understood. The situation escalates and may take us backwards in our relationships into resentment rather than forward into understanding and resolution. It's funny how I find myself listening to my life now because of this listening series we're doing. The point Lindahl makes in her book, The Sacred Art of Listening, is that instead of continuing to push when we meet resistance, we actually let go. We stop doing and be still, stop talking and listen. A phrase I love is, don't just do something, sit there. Lately, because of this listening series, I believe, I have had multiple instances when I've been encouraged to stop doing what hasn't been working and do the opposite. So I'll share. For 3 years now, I have had moderate to severe neck pain. No reason, nothing really caused it. I don't know why it happened, just all of a sudden, severe neck pain. I stretch and massage, and I've done all the things you could possibly do for neck pain, and nothing has worked. I finally gave in and went to go see a physical therapist. And I told him my whole story, and he said, stop stretching. And I was like, what? It hurts. I have to stretch. But I decided to trust him. I'd tried everything else. And guess what? No more pain. That was a week ago. It's been going on for 3 years. So I want to share another story with you, and it touches on the concept that our listening journal has been prompting us to consider about what symbols, words, objects, art, or images inspire us to be better listeners. The story is about my grandfather. My grandfather was many things. He was an astute businessman. He was generous. He had a great sense of humor and was a prankster. And he was a great teacher. He taught me a lot about patience and rhythms of the earth. He was also a man of few words. When he spoke, people listened. I listened. Here's why. When he had something on his mind, he would begin with, say. So for instance, say, I'm going to feed the cows. This was an invitation to join him and help. Say, how's school going? This made me feel like he was focused on me and really wanted to know what I was up to in the world. I specifically remember one evening when I was around 7 or 8, and he said, say, you see that cluster of stars up there? Do you know what they're called? No, I remember saying, they have a name. He shared, yes, they're called Pleiades, or the 7 sisters. Sure are a lot of stars up there, aren't there? Yes, sir, I answered. I wonder if we'll ever know all of them. To which he replied, yes, Dolly, I reckon one day we will. I remember this conversation because it was of the heart. We were both really listening and wondering together. I was learning and he was teaching. Jesus did the same thing. Maybe that's where my grandfather learned his way of speaking. I'm not sure. When Jesus had something truly important to say, and of course he was always saying important things, but when he really, really wanted us to listen, he often called our attention to it. For instance, you have heard that it was said, therefore I tell you who hear me. I tell you the truth. Listen to me. Listen and understand. I have something to tell you. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I wonder what the impact of listening to such a calling is for each of you. To me, they draw my full attention to Jesus, the one who speaks. I am listening for wisdom and guidance on the best way to live. Over and over again, after Jesus calls us to listen, he calls us to love. Paul Tillich tells us this: the first duty of love is to listen. There seems to be an innate human yearning to be listened to be nurtured by another's listening. We want to know that someone else understands who we are. The impact of being listened to is profound, and not being listened to can be not only devastating, but dehumanizing. Human connection is a basic need. In the book, Welcome Homeless, Alan Graham, who is the founder and CEO of Austin's Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and he's also the principal organizer of Community First in Austin, claims that the number one cause of homelessness is profound and catastrophic loss of community. Profound and catastrophic loss of community. Part of being in community is listening to others. Graham found himself called to serve people who were homeless. And by listening to a suggestion from one member of the homeless community, his name was Houston, he began taking food to the homeless, not expecting the homeless to come to the food. He went out among the homeless community, and he listened to their stories and their needs. By listening, his vision has expanded exponentially and has now served over 5 million meals with a side of hope. The impact of listening has also given birth to a thriving community where homeless people can find family and belonging. Entities from all over the world have come to Austin to listen, to learn, and to study his model, then take those ideas back to their neighborhoods to offer hope and healing. By listening, he became a voice for the voiceless. This is the impact of listening. However, here's another impact. The listener will also be changed. We will learn something new, see another perspective, or find ourselves resonating with others. Focusing on someone else brings out the best in us. So how do we become the kind of listener who has an impact? We open genuine space through silence, reflection, and deep listening. We connect with other people on a heart level, and we practice being silent with ourselves to know our own hearts and voices, and to anchor ourselves in the present moment. Once we learn how to make our minds still, like water in a pond, people are inevitably drawn to us. The stillness allows others to see their own reflection, to listen to themselves and wonder about their own story. Then perhaps they will become better listeners as well. And like ripples in the pond, that gift can reverberate out into the world, becoming even more impactful and transformative. I have another story to tell you. I was in the Vanderbilt University concert choir. Now, don't anybody try to get me to belong to the choir because you'll regret it. But let me tell you how this came about. My roommate, Kristen, had a beautiful alto singing voice and encouraged me to join her as a choir member. She and I didn't know each other when we first were assigned a dorm room together our freshman year. I was a Texan and she was from Iowa. We became fast friends, though, mostly through our love of music. I introduced her to George Strait and Reba McEntire, and she introduced me to the show tunes from Fiddler on the Roof and Rent. She came with me to the choir audition my sophomore year, and stood outside the door. It was humiliating. Everyone in the room was wincing as I sang, including myself. I was about to tuck tail and run when Kristen opened the door and said, "Give her one more chance. She can do this. She can't read music or sing to an instrument, granted, but she can match pitch. Let me sing with her." And she did. And I, becoming a member of the Vanderbilt concert choir, had the opportunity to sing African American spirituals in St. Thomas Church, Leipzig, Germany, over the tomb of Johann Sebastian Bach, in front of an audience of a full church who spoke little to no English, with tears in my eyes. When a choir sings, something wondrously miraculous happens. In most songs, everyone in the choir takes a breath at the same time in between prescribed measures. And because we breathe together, our heartbeats synchronize. Our hearts beat as one organism. What would it be like if we, as members of the body of Christ here at Calvary, listened and participated together to accomplish a goal? God created us as unique children of his own. We are each different, our voices are different, and yet we are all one body. We all have individual gifts, but if we listen in community and act in communion with one another, each bringing our own gifts and appreciating the offerings of others, that synergy is powerful and life-changing. My friend Kristen listened to me, and it changed my life. Alone, I never would have been invited to sing in St. Thomas Kirche, Leipzig. But by someone listening to me and by my own listening and matching pitch with others, I became part of something extraordinary. Now, everything we've learned about silence, reflection, and presence applies to listening in groups. When engaged in group communication, the ideal listening environment is when everyone sits in a circle. I felt important to include this part of Kay Lindahl's book because it's something that as we go out from here, we will take with us from this listening series, this group of listeners, out into other parts of the church, our community. And we're on Zoom in COVID and we're in little boxes. And although, as Susan talked, you know, we can all see each other and we can't really hide, and we kind of get to know more about each other with our dogs and families that jump in. It kind of makes us a little vulnerable to know each other. But it's important to mention that sitting in a circle together in person promotes deep listening. Doing so causes us to see ourselves and each other differently. We can't hide, so we're vulnerable to one another. We are all members of one group, and all of us are equally important. When we are in groups, listening takes on a new dimension. We prepare to let go of a personal agenda or a claim to a specific idea. We begin to learn together. The circle encourages this growth. We attune our hearts. As we sit together in silence, facing one another, we become in touch with our own inner wisdom and start connecting with each other on a heart level. We become present. So thank you for hearing my words there. One of the things that I want for us to take with us into our small breakout groups is the idea of the circle. And even though we're in tiny boxes on a flat screen, I feel as though we have an inclusive community here. So one of the things that we're going to talk about in the breakout sessions kind of touches on this idea. So I'm going to see if I can share screen, and I'm guessing this is, let me just get real here for a second. Charla Ann, Cheryl, Susan, Charlotte, Christine, do y'all all have the breakout questions? Okay, so maybe I don't even need to share screen if y'all have got them. Okay, so I guess, Matt, if you'll send us out into our breakout groups, and then when we come back together, we have some questions to kind of talk